Hi there, Glenn here from Digital Photography Courses. In this session we're going to be having a look at mounting your Move Shoot Move Rotator to a ball head. Now, I did previously a video showing you how to sort of fix it to a pan and tilt head, and I'll leave a link to that below in the description. So what I have got here is I've got a grip head, but you know, just it is a ball head, and obviously most people would be used to maybe seeing a ball head more like this, but it doesn't really matter which one you've got, it's a ball head regardless. So when we come in to join these together, the first thing that most people tend to do once you get the Move Shoot Move out of its packet and you have a look at it, is you'll notice that just here we have a 1/4 inch screw thread, and then on the back we have a 3/8 screw thread. Now, most people will have a tripod with a tripod head, and that tripod head or the tripod plate will have a matching 1/4 inch screw. So the obvious assumption is that we screw this onto this hole here, and that is absolutely fine. That's what we do. And so we'll get this screwed on, make sure it's on nice and tight, nice and square, and then we can pop our MSM in there. There we go. Make sure it's good and tight and locked in. And of course the next thing we need to do is we need to point this towards the northern celestial pole, or the southern celestial pole. What I would just do is when you do mount it, make sure that you can kind of see the controls here, and using the kind of the line through here, if you can get yourself roughly lined up. What I tend to do is you can do this in the daytime if you want. If you've got a compass or you've got a compass app on your phone, you can simply point that, find out where north is, get it more or less lined up. And likewise with your angle, I'm at sort of 52 degrees here in the UK, and so 45 is kind of about there, and 52 is a little bit higher. And you can use an app that will do that for you as well. Okay, so that mounting there, that is probably the simplest and easiest mounting that most people would do. And then we would just simply place our camera into the ball head, and so we have north or south celestial pole, and in this case my target at this time of the year, quite often the target is like to be something like Orion, and that's over in this direction. And then of course what we would do is simply aim the laser at Polaris or at the southern celestial pole, lock it off, and hopefully everything's good. One thing we do tend to get with ball heads to some extent, and this is why you want a really good solid ball head, is they do tend to drop a little bit, so you might need to aim slightly high and you know, to just allow for that slight drop. Okay, so once we've got a really good alignment here, just make sure that everything is nicely locked off, and then we can go and find our target. So in this case, say I'm shooting Orion, it's over in this direction. What I can do is I can just unlock, point to where I need it to be, obviously do my exposure test and all sorts of things, double check to make sure everything is locked off, switch the laser back on, just double check to make sure that we haven't knocked alignment. So sometimes happens, you know, you might knock alignment, so just double check that. Personally, I don't like to leave the laser on, I just want to get it on there, get my sort of alignment, and then I switch it off. And if I see any aircraft coming over, then I'll switch it off anyway, regardless. So once I'm happy, I tend to take the laser finder off and go and pop that somewhere warm, because these aren't so, I find that if they get cold they can stop working. So just sort of keep that nice and warm. So that is one method of lining it up, and that works quite nicely. You can see it looks quite cool. So, and that's probably the most obvious method, but there is another method. So if I just take the camera off for a second, pop that down here, and take this off, what we can do is we can mount it using this here, this screw hole here. Now, to do that, your MSM kit comes with a little screw thread, and if I can show you, this matches this, and there is a little slot in there. Now, what people might think you might want to do is screw that into there. I would not recommend that, because if you actually look at that hole, it's quite deep, and this would go right inside there, and so much so that when you try to fit your screw, thread, it will not either not reach, or it might just reach and just be on by one sort of line, in which case it could fall off really quite easy. So what I suggest you do is to screw this onto your tripod plate, and you'll notice that there is a little sort of slot in there for a screwdriver. So grab a screwdriver and just give that a quarter turn, just to make sure it's really nice and tight. Now what we can do, you can take this and put it into Move Shoot Move, screw it on, making sure of course that we have the controls at the top, and then fit this to our ball head. There we go. And of course what we want to do is we want this facing again towards the north celestial pole. So if you draw an imaginary line through here, then that should be going towards the north or south celestial pole. And make sure everything's good and tight. And of course, if my target's in this direction, pop this on again, make sure it's all good and tight, and then we can just loosen things off and go and aim at our target. So now the camera's on there, we can pop on the scope, making sure that all these, any sort of straps and everything are out of the way. And now what you would do is obviously loosen off. Now what I recommend you do is support the rig, because as soon as you undo your ball head, this whole thing's going to kind of fall off in that direction. So support the rig and carefully not to block the laser. If you do block the laser with the camera, then what you can do is just tilt this forward for a second so that you've got a good line of sight. Tilt that, get yourself lined up with the pole. Sometimes these heads, depending on how good your head is, there might be a slight drop, so you may need to just kind of, you know, go slightly high to allow for that drop. Get yourself nicely lined up. Go off and find your target, fine tune it, get it all framed up. Maybe do another quick check that that movement hasn't knocked anything off, and then I like to take the scope off because I like to put this somewhere warm, put it in my pocket, because sometimes when these get cold, if they get really cold, then they can stop working. So go and pop that in your pocket. And as I said before, if you want to do a upright shot, rather than moving the weight over sort of to the side like this, because that's going to put a lot of strain on the MSN, what I suggest you do instead is to use an L bracket and mount the L bracket so that you can use it, and that keeps the centre of gravity nicely over the middle, which works really well. So I hope, guys, that helps you, explains it. And what I'll do in a while is I'll do another little video on about using a wedge, and then other options that you have as well. Okay, that you can make life easier for yourself. Great, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.